Good evening, everybody. I'm Natalie Lacatina. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Education, and I'm here tonight to talk to you about the grade 5 through 8 configuration at the middle schools. Scott Helfand is here as well, Principal of Memorial, and in the back is Gary Penkowitz, who is our Supervisor of English Language Arts. So thank you so much for coming tonight. We really appreciate it.
Now 7:15, the first breakout session will begin. The session will last until 7:30.
Thank you, Mr. Marzella. So we're glad that you came tonight so that you can find out some more information about our proposed referendum and building project. What I'm going to talk to you about is some visitations that we made. There were groups of teachers and administrators that went to visit some local districts that had configurations of grades 5 through 8 in their middle schools. So we wanted to find out some information from them. We heard the concerns of the public in our survey that we sent out. We spoke with 5th grade teachers, we spoke with parents and administrators, and we wanted to find out some information about how other districts were faring with this configuration. So we visited Paramus, Hillsdale, Teaneck, and Verona. Those 4 districts have grades 5 through 8 configurations. We also went to Ridgewood. They have a straight 6 through 8 middle school, but they do the house system really well, and we wanted to find out some additional information from them. So that's why we went to go visit Ridgewood. And so that just shows you all the staff that went on the visitations. So basically what we did was we assigned teams of teachers and supervisors to visit the districts. We created common questions that we wanted to ask, and then what we did is we came back together. We had asked them to fill out a Google form to share their experiences and what they learned, and we got together to debrief about what we learned in each of the districts, and that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. So a very condensed summary of what we found out. We found out that about half of the districts used the house system, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. Hillsdale and Teaneck didn't use the house system, but they're so small in population that basically the grade level itself sort of acted as a house, as a team of students. They had the same code of conduct. That was a question that came up from the public. They did not differentiate between a 5th grade code of conduct and an 8th grade code of conduct. But what they did is what we do all the time anyway, which is take into account the developmental age of the student. And obviously that's always something we consider when we talk about the code of conduct and any kinds of disciplinary measures. Most of the districts we went to did not stagger the day. All students came in and left at the same time. Only one that we visited, Teaneck, actually staggered their start and end times. Most of the districts we looked at were departmentalized in some way. So it may have been they had a team of 2 teachers, so maybe one teacher taught social studies and English and another teacher taught math and science. Most did not do a full departmentalized schedule like we currently have in our middle schools. In Teaneck, they kept the traditional elementary self-contained type of a schedule for the 5th grade and 6th grade, and then departmentalized in grades 7 through 8. There's something called advisory. An advisory period is an opportunity for small groups of students to meet with an adult on staff, sometimes on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. It depends on how it's scheduled. But it's an opportunity for community building. It's an opportunity to talk about maybe social issues or other concerns that students may have. So again, half the districts did that, half did not. Most of the schools we visited, 3 out of 4, have a separate wing of some sort for their middle 5th grade students. Interestingly, I believe it was Paramus that had the 8th graders separated, so it wasn't necessarily 5th grade that was separate, it was the 8th grade that was separate. They all held parent-teacher conferences still, which was sort of nice to see, and they all provided guidance counselors for the 5th grade students. So that's sort of a very quick summary of what we found when we went to visit these schools. So let's talk about a house. So basically a house system is when you take the larger school community and you take the students and you group them into smaller communities of students that work with a designated team of teachers. So the same team of teachers sees the same group of students throughout the day. So the students get all mixed up within that group of, say, 100 students, but they share the same teachers. And so one of the benefits of a house system is we provide common time for the teachers to get together, and they're allowed to plan together. They can do interdisciplinary units, but it also gives them a chance to talk about students. If there's a concern about a child, how can we better help him? I'm seeing this in my class, what are you seeing in your class? So what it does, again, is it allows a team of teachers to get to really know the children. We used to have a house system in Fair Lawn quite a few years ago, and we still use some aspects of this in our middle schools. But this is something that really helps with a student's sense of connectedness to a building. It provides social and emotional support for children when you set up these types of houses. Within those houses, basically you have child study team members typically assigned, guidance counselors, there are special education teachers built right within that team of teachers as well, and oftentimes that house is overseen by a building administrator. The other thing that we found when we went to all of the districts was all the great things they did to transition students from 4th grade into that 5th grade setting in the middle school. They did things like family fun nights and welcome barbecues. They held open houses. They had lots of team building activities. Sometimes that was done in May or June. Sometimes it was done over the summer. Sometimes they waited until September to do that. It differed depending on the town, but again, an emphasis on doing whatever we could to help students transition, feel comfortable, get them familiar with their new environment. One thing we thought was particularly interesting was in one of the districts, administrators actually went down to the elementary schools while the students were still in 4th grade. So, Mr. Helfand could go down to the 4th grade students, they can become familiar with his face already. And so that was a really interesting thing as well. So transition is really important to our parents and to our staff, thinking about making this shift into grade 5 through 8. The other interesting thing that I look at is, I sort of look at this 5th grade as an entire transition year. So this provides us with opportunities to really sort of think outside the box. It gives us opportunities to look at the other grade levels as well. So in looking at the other districts, most students did not come from self-contained 4th grade and then 8 different teachers in the middle school. It really was this really nice in-between kind of a year for the students. They had multiple teachers, but not 8 or 9 different teachers. And so I look at it as an opportunity to really make it a year of transition. While the students might be in a middle school building, they're not necessarily following a middle school schedule. So that is something that we were really sort of excited about as our team was talking. And we talked about some of the benefits for 5th grade students, and there are others. But there are more varied course options for the students, obviously, because we have rotation type courses at the middle school. So they would be able to take advantage of those kinds of courses. The teachers in the building would have, our elementary teachers are generalists. They teach everything. But then we have content specialists in the 7th grade and the 8th grade. So our teachers would be able to take advantage of the expertise and the content from those other teachers. There are library services being offered in the middle school with a media specialist, a librarian. We don't have librarians in the elementary schools. That's a nice benefit for our students. They would have the opportunity to participate in extracurricular clubs, and there's some really nice things that go on in the 2 middle schools. They would have expanded peer opportunities. They get to meet other students earlier. They get to switch classes and be able to interact with other children from the district. And again, advisory is something that we really think is meaningful for our children, and again, helps make connections, helps a trusted adult and child situation take place. And that's what we really want for our students. We want our students to feel connected to an adult. It's a it's a tough time in their lives in middle school, and so it's really helpful to be able to build those relationships. So the takeaways that we got from our visits is that we found that the schools had more similarities than differences in the way they structured their schools. Most had some form of a departmentalized schedule. They had parent-teacher conferences. They had a house system and advisory and lots of transition activities. Again, it allowed strong teacher teams, which helps with students' achievement. There was a sense of community that seemed pretty evident when our teams went into the buildings, which we really loved. We now have these great relationships with other districts that we are hoping to continue as time goes on to sort of, again, pick their brains, get some ideas from them. And one of the most exciting things that we took away, there were 2 districts where we actually got to speak with students. They were so excited about being in a middle school. They expressed that they were really ready for it. They were excited about it. They didn't feel like it was a difficult transition for them. And that was good for us to be able to speak with some students. So we were really grateful that those districts allowed us to do that. So final thoughts, we really asked them, what were your challenges? Well, some of these districts have been doing this for 27 or 32 years. The people we spoke with weren't around when it first started. It was difficult for them to talk to us about the challenges. Verona did it maybe 7 years ago. And you know, scheduling concerns were the things that came up most of the time. But they basically told us nothing was insurmountable. There was no major obstacle that they saw having the 5th graders with the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And the good news was everybody came back and they emailed me or called me and said, oh my God, that was amazing. It was so much fun to go and visit other districts and hear what goes on other places. They were energized, they were excited about what we could do in our own town. And so that was one of our biggest takeaway. And everybody's really excited to go on this journey. So we see this as opportunity, not only for 5th graders, but we look at it as opportunities for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade as well. We have so many exciting conversations. We're eager to get going with the rest of this. So that's basically what I wanted to share with you tonight. And we still had time for some questions. Yes?
Will the 6th grade continue like it is now, where everything is self-contained?
Not self-contained.
Excuse me, where
It's a fully
fully departmentalized.
So that's something that's on the table, and again, to me, that's one of the exciting pieces. I don't know if you remember, but at one point we talked about doing a 5-6 building
Right.
and a 7-8 building. Well, there's no reason why we can't think about doing a 5-6 type schedule and a 7-8 type schedule within the same building. So those are conversations we're having. I can imagine 5th and 6th graders being much more similar than maybe a 6th grader with a 7th grader or an 8th grader. So that is something we are considering, and that's what I mean by it opens up opportunities for us to look across the grade levels.
Mhm.
While we know the biggest impact is moving the 5th grade, there are other considerations that we want to definitely talk about.
I like what you're saying about the 5th grade, because I think it is a year where that needs to be strengthened. I'll be honest with you, and I've said this before, I've always thought that 5th grade is the weakest link in Fairlawn's system.
Okay.
I've always felt that way. So moving them over to the middle school and getting them on that track earlier, I think is positive. But I would hate to see that you start to decompartmentalize 6th grade, because there's a tremendous difference in the output from the children in 6th grade going into 7th grade, and they need that time. And so I'd hate to,
So you like the 6th grade
I like
the way it is?
the 6th grade the way that it is, as a parent, you know, who's been through that, you know, I just think that you really need that 6th grade to get ready for 7th and 8th. And because by the time you're in 8th grade, you really have to get into that schedule, because you're gonna need it for high school. So again, it's those transition years, and I would hate to see 6th grade kind of get lost in the shuffle of moving the 5th grade over. I really
Right.
like what you're talking about with the 5th grade. My worry then is the 6th grade. Do they kind of get pulled down,
Right.
you know?
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. Other questions or concerns? Anything, Gary or Scott, that you want to add?
Questions about the middle school?
Will the 2 middle schools mirror each other?
They would mirror each other.
So whatever
Yes, they would.
programs are in Memorial will be at TJ and vice versa?
Absolutely, so for the most part, whatever programs currently now are at TJ are at Memorial. There are some special education programs that might be different in buildings. Some of our ESL services are different in the buildings, and we are talking about trying to make those as common as possisible.
It's now
But otherwise,
7:30,
programs are
and
the
for
same.
session 1 is concluded. Session 1 is concluded, would you please move on to session 2?